This is Milagro from Miracles Are Me Crochet. We are here today to begin to work on a crochet lab tutorial for Herrschners Cascade Delight Throw. This is categorized by Herrschner as an easy level pattern, which I would say is probably, I would give it a like level 2 easy. Only because you will do a new stitch for many, which is a long single crochet. So in this pattern you will utilize Herrschner's worsted weight yarn. So the first colorway is Herrschner's worsted yarn in the color white. This is a category 4 weight yarn, 100% acrylic, machine wash and dry. And the second colorway is a gradients, which is Herrschner's worsted gradients yarn. This again is a medium weight 3 and machine wash and dry. So that's our two colorways. You will also be utilizing a K hook, which is a 6.5 millimeter hook for this project. Now, a few things to go over before we start this project. One is that this project, instead of being worked from bottom to top, it is worked from side to side. Okay, so when you're working, you're going to be working this way instead of from the bottom to the top, which is really not a big deal. The second thing in this pattern is that you're going to carry a yarn up one side. So you're going to drop the yarn and then carry it instead of tying off and cutting and then having to worry about putting weaving in your ends. You'll have very few ends to weave in. Okay, now I must be very forthcoming in saying that I have made some modifications to this pattern. Some things I don't know, it weren't working for me. So I am located in Puerto Rico. In Puerto Rico, we cannot call the 1-800 numbers that are available for U.S. citizens, for the U.S. People in the U.S. So when we call, you can't reach this number from where you are. So I have emailed Herrschner's with kind of like my changes and to kind of reach out and see what their thoughts are. Not saying their pattern is wrong, but I just chose to do an alternative that I thought was easier, and I wanted to reach out and see what their thoughts are, or to see if they did make any changes to the pattern since I received it. Okay, so let's get started. I think you're going to enjoy this pattern. So first we're going to begin, this is the first change that I made, and that is that the pattern calls for 168 chains. I have changed that, and I will begin with working color A for 167 chains, so -1. Oh, before we get started too, I wanted to show you that before I work any patterns and do my tutorials, I always do like a sample stitch out of the majority of the pattern. This is my sample stitch out. I did a sample stitch out with theirs, and I did quite a few, and it just wasn't working for me. So this is the sample stitch out of my revisions. Okay, so I'm not saying that just blindly, that I had to revise it. Okay, so we're going to start our pattern with 167 chains, not 168 as stated in the pattern. So we're making a slip knot, and we'll begin making our 167 chains. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I'm going to ask you to continue to make 167 chains, and then we'll meet towards the end. Okay, again, as I stated, unlike the pattern, I have completed 167 chains. So to begin row 1, I'm going to turn my work so I can see the humps in the back. So here are my humps. I'm going to skip the very first hump. So for me, that's right here. I'm going to skip that hump, and I'm going to go to the second hump and put a single crochet. So there is my first single crochet. And I'm going to continue making single crochets in each stitch of my chain until I get to the very end. And then we'll meet again at the very end. I have now reached towards the end of row 1. Before we finish off these last 1, 2, 3 stitches, a few things I want to tell you. Number 1, this row 1 will be your right side, so the up face of your blanket. One thing I can tell you to do so you can easily distinguish once you start your border is the upside or the right side of your blanket is to mark it. So you can simply not go in the chain, the 2 loops. You can go into the bars. So I just take a small swatch of yarn that I had laying around towards the end of my stitches. I pull one through, go in between the next, pull that through, and then I not make a knot, but a simple either a bow, or I like to do this so that I can easily take it off. And there you know that that's your right side. So this is how it look in the back and in the front. I tell you not to put it in the bars so that way it won't be in your way when you're making your next stitch. Okay? So that way you know that this is your right side and you have it marked off. Okay, now that we're reaching towards the end, now my yarn happened to have a knot here, tying 2 yarns together. You'll see that for beginners, you'll see that the manufacturers sometimes when they get to the end of yarn, they'll tie 2 pieces together to continue the ball. So my grandmother had a golden rule, you never put knots in the middle of your work. Some people do. I don't, because that's the way I was taught, and her rationale was that you never want to give a customer something like that because gosh forbid they wash it and the knot comes loose that was done by the manufacturer, and then they have a blanket, a beautiful blanket or Afghan that is literally falling apart. So I cut it right here, and what I always do is I rejoin at the end of the row. So even if I'm about right here and I come across a knot, I'm going to pull all of this out and restart with a new join. Okay, I'm not going to leave knots in the middle. So you would join just like you do with any other color change, etc. So there's our, and here on my last stitch, only because I have that and knot that I didn't want in the center of my blanket, I'm going to do a new join with my with my same color white. So here's my slip knot, and I'm going to do a new join. Okay, so that's just a little piece of advice. That's your choice to do, but it's just a tip and a little suggestion. You don't want to give anybody something that's as a gift, and you don't want your hard work to go in vain by having your yarn pull apart after it's complete. Okay, so for our row 3, we're going to basically do a repeat of row 2. We're going to chain 1, Here's my chain 1. That chain 1 does not count as a stitch. I'm going to turn my work. And we're going to start again with single crochets in each stitch across. So I have my chain 1 that does not count, therefore I'm going to go into this very first stitch. Let me get this out the way. So right here I'm going. So in that very first stitch, there I'm going. Now, if you're a beginner, I'm going to make a few more. If you are a beginner, another little tip you can do, or fairly new to crochet, is a lot of times people miss stitches, and most often the stitches that they miss are the first and the last stitch. So what you can do is right after you make that first stitch, you can mark it with a stitch marker, and that'll be a little clue for you that that's my first stitch. And you can do that with your last stitch, and your last stitch is really important because that is most commonly the stitch that people miss. And then they'll say, well, my thing ended up with 90 stitches instead of 91, etc. Okay, so you're going to continue making single crochets until we meet again for that last stitch. So this row, which that we're working on right now, row 2, and the first row that we worked on, row 1, should consist of 166 stitches. 166, because remember I changed my chain amount to 167. So you'll have one less stitch than the chains that we started with. Okay, so you continue making your chains across this second row, and I'll meet you right before the end, because then we're going to do a color change before we complete this row. So I'll see you soon. Oh, before we leave, I wanted to show you this stitch, and I got right there and stopped. So the reason why I told you not to do it in the 2 loops up the top, to make your right side reminder with the pink string, is that way you can go right into 2 bars and you're not bothering your work or having to work around it. If you can see that, still there, and I haven't had to work around that piece of pink that I put there. Okay, now we'll go and finish out this round, and then I'll meet you towards the end. Bye-bye. Okay, so I am towards the end of row 2. So we're going to finish off this row. And as I suggest for the beginners, I won't continue doing this, but I'll do it this last time. So I have my stitch marker in my last chain. So we're going to double crochet here. So now that's how I know that this is my last chain. So I got to make sure I put a stitch in there and I won't miss it. And you can continue doing that throughout until you kind of get the hang of, once you've been crocheting for a while, you'll know where your last stitch is. So for our last stitch, we're going to do a color change. So we're going to go in our loops, we're going to do a partial single crochet and hold those 2 loops on your hook. So I already have my slip knot and my color change, which is color B, which is the gradients yarn, which is called Calypso. So we're going to attach our slip knot and pull through. Now for this white, we're not going to cut it because we're going to just drop this yarn so that later we can carry it up. Okay, so to begin row 3, we're going to chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. So we have our chain 3, and we're going to turn our work. Now, again, like I said, I made some what I would call modifications to this pattern. I want to say I feel comfortable doing that because at the time of this video, I'm not an affiliate of Herrschners. So I didn't get their permission to do it. This is just suggestions that you may want to work with, okay? So that's the last time we'll talk about that. Okay, so we have our chain 3. This chain 3, down and throughout, counts as a double crochet. Once you've made that chain 3, it's now a double crochet. So as the pattern states, they want you to skip the first single crochet. I'm going to omit that. I don't know why they wrote that, but I don't know. Maybe it's a reasoning that I don't understand. So I'm going to go to the next directions, which are a double crochet in the next stitch. So here's my double crochet right next to that chain 3 that is now a double crochet. So I have the chain 3 double crochet and then a double crochet right in the next stitch. And then I'm going to do a half double crochet. So we're going to go in, pull up. We have 3 loops on our hook. We're going to pull through all 3 loops. And there's our half double crochet. And then in the next stitch, we're going to do a single crochet right in that next stitch. Okay, now we're going to start our pattern repeat. So we're going to chain 2, 1, 2. We're going to skip the next 2 stitches. So we're going to skip this stitch and skip this stitch. And we're in the very next stitch right here, we're going to do a single crochet. The very next stitch, we're going to do a half double crochet. So yarn over, go in, you have 3 loops on your hook, pull through all 3. The next stitch, we're going to do a double crochet, yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2. The next stitch, another double crochet, yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2. The next stitch, we're going to do a treble crochet in the very next stitch. So you're going to yarn over and yarn over again. You're going to go in, pull up a loop. You'll have 4 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull through 2. You'll have 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull through 2. You'll have 2 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull through the remaining 2, and now you have your treble. Let's do that one more time in the next stitch. Yarn over twice. Go through the next stitch. You'll have 4 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull through 2. You have 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull through 2. You have 2 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull through the remaining 2. Now your treble is made. Your very next stitch, you're going to do a double crochet. Very next stitch, another double crochet. Next stitch is your half double crochet, yarn over, pull through. You have 3 loops on your hook. 1, 2, 3. Pull through all 3. The very next stitch is a single crochet. Chain 2. And then we're going to skip these next 2 stitches. So our stitch pattern repeat. There you go. So we'll do that one more time. So we have our chain 2 on our hook. We're going to skip the next 2 stitches. Skip, skip. In the very next stitch, we're going to do a single crochet. The next stitch, a half double crochet. The next stitch, a double crochet. Next stitch, a double crochet. The next stitch, we're going to do a treble. So yarn over twice. Pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2. The next stitch, another treble crochet. The next stitch, a double crochet. Another double crochet in the next stitch. In the next stitch, a half double crochet. And the next stitch, a single crochet. Chain 2. So then we're going to continue to repeat that pattern until we get to the last 6 stitches, and then we'll meet again. So you should be looking like this at this point. You see your little, what they call a cascade. Here's your cascade. Okay, so continue with that until you get to the last 6 stitches, and then we'll meet again. All right, so now I have reached towards the end of row 3, and row 3 we're going to finish off. So we're going to chain 2, we're going to skip 2 stitches, we're going to single crochet in that next stitch. And then in the very next stitch, we're going to do a half double crochet. And then in the last 2 stitches, we're going to do double crochets. So double crochets. And for my newbies who I taught to put a stitch marker on your last double crochet, on your last stitch of the row, we're going to take that out and we will double crochet in that last stitch. So you newbies, you can continue putting your stitch marker in your first and last stitch. I won't continue doing that, but you newbies, that's a good thing for you to do. Okay, so your stitches stay on. For row 4, we're going to chain 3. So 1, 2, 3, and we're continuing in the same colorway. We're going to turn our work, and we're basically going to do pretty much the same as what we did in row 3. So we have our chain 3, which is now a double crochet, and we're going to double crochet in the same stitch, in the next stitch, I'm sorry. So we'll double crochet, we have our chain 3, and then we double crocheted in the next stitch. And then we're going to do a half double crochet in the next stitch, and then a single crochet. Chain 2. We're going to skip these 2 chains and that chain 2 space, and we're going to single crochet in the next single crochet. And then we're going to half double in the next stitch, a double crochet in the next, double crochet in the next, a treble in the next, treble in the next, a half double crochet, another half double crochet in the next stitch, a half in the next stitch, and a single, and then we'll chain 2, and we'll complete that same stitch pattern all the way until we get to, again, the last 6 stitches, okay? Now, to keep you on track, you should have, I'll call these little waves, I'll call them cascades. So you should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 cascades. And then you should have a half a cascade in the beginning and another half of a cascade at the end, okay? Each of these cascades, not including the chain 2s, should be 10 stitches. So starting, here's your chain 2, and then starting with that single, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then you do your chain 2. So this right here, 10 stitches to complete that, okay? So that should help keep you on track. When we get towards the completing this round 4, we're going to change colors. All right, so now I have reached towards the end of row 4. So I have made my chain 2. Once I have made my chain 2, I'm going to skip these chain 2 chains and that chain 2 space, and in the next stitch which would be, here's my chain 2, and that very next stitch I'm going to place a single crochet. In the next stitch I'm going to do a half double crochet. In the very next stitch I'm going to do a double crochet. And then in the next stitch, we're going to change our colors, which is the last stitch. So we're going to go right here in that last stitch, right there. So we're going to go in and do a partial double crochet. So I have 3 chains on my hook, yarn over, and I'm going to pull through 2. I have 2 loops on my hook, and I'm going to hold it there. So I am going to bring up, I'm going to drop, bing, my calypso color, and I'm going to bring up my white. Remember, we're going to carry it up. So I'm going to bring up my white. Now, when you're bringing up your yarn, be sure not to pull it too snug. You want to have it not loosey-goosey, but loose enough, okay? So that as you're carrying your chains up, your stitches don't start to do that. All right, so you want to make sure that you give them enough leeway, and you might want to periodically check just to make sure that they are not too tight, because a lot of people, they make them too tight and then they're side bunches, okay, and we don't want that to happen. So now you have completed row 4, and you have dropped, here's your calypso, that is dropped down, okay? So now that we've completed row 4, we're going to begin row 5, which we're going to begin with our now new color, which is white, and we're going to chain 1. That chain 1 does not count as a stitch. We're going to turn our work. Now with that chain 1 not counting as a stitch, we're going to put a single crochet in each of the 4 single crochets. So we're going to go right here. I'll show you from this angle. So you're going to go, I'll move this in this stitch right here, okay? So because that chain 1 does not count as a stitch. So here's our first single crochet completed. And then we're going to go in the next 3 single crochets and place a single crochet, the next 3 stitches, I'm sorry, and put a single crochet in each. And here, that's number 4. Okay, so now we are at our chain, our chain 2 and our chain 2 space. Okay, so what we're going to do, and the pattern doesn't state this, and that's another modification I will make to the pattern, is I would specifically state that the next 2 stitches are our long single crochet. Okay, and they don't say that, they just tell you working in the front of the chain 2 spaces. But what you're going to do is you're going to make a long single crochet, and how you're going to do that is you're going to go not in this chain space, not in this chain space, but below that in the single crochets right there. So not, I'm gonna use a pencil. So not in this space, not in this space, but in this single crochet right here. So here's your 2 chain spaces, and you're going to go right there, and you're going to make your long single crochet. So you're going to go in here in that white, pull it up, and you're going to make sure that you pull it up enough where it meets with the row that you're working on. Okay, so you have to pull it up just a bit so that it meets and is even with that row. You don't want it to be like this. Okay, you want it to meet up with that same row. So that's why it's called a long single crochet, because it has long legs. All right, like that. And then for the next stitch, you're going to do the same thing. So you're not going to go in this chain space, and you're not going to go in this chain space. You're going to go 3 rows down into here, and you're going to put another long single crochet. So pull it up till it meets with that row, and then now you have your 2 long single crochets. All right, and the pattern, I don't know why it doesn't say that, but that's how you're going to go. All right, and then you're going to remember I said your cascade contains 10 stitches. You're going to put a single crochet in each of those 10 stitches. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and this is 10. So now you're going to be at your chain 2 area again, where again you're going to put your 2 long single crochets. So you're going to not go in this space and not in that space, but in the white area, 3 rows down, you're going to put a long single crochet, same as you did before. Make sure it has nice legs. Okay, in the next one you're going to do another long single crochet, and you're going to give it the nice long legs. And then in your cascade again, you're going to put a stitch in each of the next 10 stitches. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And you'll know you're on tracks because you should be at your chain 2 space, where again you're going to put your 2 long single crochets, and then you're going to continue working in that way until you get to the last 4 stitches in this row, and then we'll meet again. So I am reaching the end of row 5, and I think I made a mistake and told you guys that we were going to change colors at the end of this row. If I did do that, that was a mistake. We're going to continue with the same color. So we're going to put the last 4 stitches. I've just done my 2 long single crochets. Make sure you scoot this over a little bit so you can see that stitch and not miss it. So you're going to go in that first single crochet, and then you're going to put a single crochet in the next 3 stitches. And here is the last stitch, and you'll put your single crochet. All right. So we're looking pretty good, everybody. Looking pretty good. All right. So now we're going to work on row 6, which is very simple. We're going to chain 1, and we're just going to put single crochets throughout that previous row. So we're going to, that chain 1 still does not count as a stitch, so we're going to go in our first stitch, which, let me move this so you can see, will be right here. So we've chained 1, and we're going to go in our first stitch and single crochet. And then we're going to continue to put a single crochet in each stitch across until we reach the end. At the end of this row is when we will change to our calypso color, or whatever color you have. So go ahead and start putting a single crochet in each stitch of the previous row, and we'll meet when you get towards the end so we can start, do a color change and start on row 7. All right, I have reached the end of row 6, and I'm going to, in my last single crochet, I'm going to do a partial single crochet in that stitch. I have 2 loops on the hook. Hold it. I'm going to drop my white and bring up my calypso color B and pull through. Now I have joined my blue calypso. Now I'm going to remind you again, make sure you don't pull your carry up yarn too tight, or else it'll start to buckle on the side. So make sure that your tension is not too tight. So to begin row 7, I'm going to chain 1 and turn my work. All right, now this chain 1, I'm going to get, sometimes you have to do this when you're carrying up yarn. You got to kind of get yourself unraveled a little bit. Okay, here we go. So now, to remind you that chain 1 does not count as a stitch. So to begin row 7, we're going to, after we chain 1, we're going to single crochet in that first stitch. So you're going to go right in this stitch right here. Okay? So we're going to do a single crochet in that first stitch. In the next stitch, we're going to do a half double crochet. In the next stitch, we're going to do a double crochet. And in the next stitch, another double crochet. And I bet you can tell me what the next few stitches are, because it's the same pattern. The next, we're going to yarn over twice, and we're going to do our treble. And then we're going to yarn over twice again and do another treble in the next stitch. Let's pull some yarn. All right. In the next stitch, we're going to do a double crochet. And then in the next stitch, another double crochet. And the next stitch, we're going to do a half double crochet. And then a single crochet in the next stitch. And then you guessed it, chain 2. And then we'll work our same repeat pattern, okay? So single crochet, half double crochet, double crochet, double crochet, treble crochet, let me fix that treble. Treble crochet, double crochet, double crochet, half double crochet, and single, and chain 2. And then you're going to continue with that same cascade pattern again until you come to the end, and then we'll meet again for row 8. So now I have reached towards the end of row 7, and I'm going to, this is a half double crochet right here, so I'm going to put my final stitch with which will be a single crochet. All right, so row 7 is now complete. So to begin row 8, again, we're going to do a single crochet, which does not count as a stitch. Turn our work. We're going to go in the first stitch, and which would be right there. Sorry, right here. And we're going to put another single crochet into that first single crochet. Then we're going to do a half double, and we're going to continue with our pattern. A double crochet in the next stitch, double crochet in the next stitch, pull in some yarn here, and then we're going to do our treble in the next stitch, treble in the next stitch, double crochet in the next stitch, another double crochet in the next stitch, half a double crochet in the next stitch, single crochet in the next stitch, chain 2. And then continue with that same pattern until you get to the last stitch in this row, and then we'll do a color change for row 9. I'm at the end of row 8, and we are going to change our yarn. With our last stitch will be a single crochet, so I'm going to put a partial single crochet in that stitch. I have 2 bars on my hook. I'm going to drop that calypso and bring up the white, making sure I don't bring it too tight for my carry on. And now I have joined my white. So for row 9, we're going to do similar as the previous row, chain 1, which does not count. We're going to go in this first stitch right here, and we're going to put in our cascade 10 single crochets. So that's 1, and then we're going to continue 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So that's our 10 single crochets along our cascade. And now we have reached our chain 2 spaces. So again, you're going to do a long single crochet, not in this space, not in this space, but in this single crochet, the white single crochet. So you're going to do your long single crochet. Make sure you got a good leg length. And there's our number 1. And then you're going to go in that next stitch, 3 rows below. Give it another long single crochet. And there you go. And then you're going to, again, in the next 10 stitches that make up your cascade, you're going to do your single crochets. And then in your chain 2 spaces, you're going to do your long single crochets. Okay? And you're going to do that until you reach the end of this row 9. Once you have completed, so our stitching is coming out beautiful. This is how our pattern will look throughout. So you'll have your long single crochets in the center of your cascade here. And then the same, you'll go work, this one will be diagonal. So in the center here. So after this, that is your pattern repeat. So you will repeat rows 2 through 9. 2 through 9 until your blanket. Remember, you're actually working lengthwise this way. So you're going in this direction. So your blanket reaches about 39, I think it is, yeah, 39 inches. So please keep in mind, if you are using my recommendations, that in row 3, you're going to omit the, once you do your chain 3, you're going to omit skipping the first single crochet. And the same for row 4, after you do your chain 3, as written in the pattern, you're going to omit the skip the first double crochet. Okay, so remember, using my recommendations, I'll repeat row 3. After you chain 3, it states to skip the first single crochet. You're going to omit that. And in row 4, the pattern says chain 3, which you're going to do, but then the pattern says skip the first double crochet. You're going to omit that and just follow the way I did my rows. And then we'll meet once your blanket is about 39 inches. We'll meet again. I'm sorry, once your blanket is 39 inches, you're going to repeat your row 2. So you're going to end with row 2. Okay, and then you're not going to cut off. Okay, so don't cut it off. Once you do your 39, ending with row 2, do not cut your string. We're going to work from there. All right, okay, happy crocheting. I'll see you soon, and we'll begin to work on the border. Okay, so I have completed my Cascade Delight throw, not including the border, which we're getting ready to get started on. So at this point, my throw is at 39 inches. So now we're going to start on the border. I still have my 2 balls of yarn still connected. They're not tied off and they're not cut. So they're right here on the end. So let us begin to complete this blanket by adding the border. So to add the border, we have completed row 2, which is our last row for this throw. Once we complete row 2, we're not going to fasten off our color A, which is our white, because we're going to continue to utilize that yarn. So what we're now going to do is work on the top and the bottom. If you remember this throw, instead of going this way, it's actually worked this way. So this is our top and here is our bottom. Now, if you remember, I told you to make a little yarn notice so you'll know what is the front of the throw and what is the back. So right now we are at the front of our throw. So to complete this, we're going to do single crochets evenly along the top and then evenly along the border. We are around the bottom. We want to make sure that when we put our single crochets in, that they're done evenly. So we do the same number for the top that we do in the for the bottom, and that's very important. So the way we're going to do this is we are, let me adjust this, sorry. I'm going to move over. We're going to continue with our white. Let me get this blue color out of the way. So I'm going to untangle just a bit. Okay. So this is where we have ended. And at this point, we're going to chain one with our white. Okay, so there's our chain one. And then we're going to work along the top, evenly spacing single crochets. Now, this is the way I would tackle that. So for my first single crochet, right in that next row with the white, I would place a single crochet. There we go. Now for my next row, I have a single crochet and a single crochet. So I would put a single crochet in each of those stitches. So here's one single crochet, and right here where we have our next, I would place another single crochet. Now, as you're going along, this is the side that we carry the yarn up on. So be certain that as you're working, you're also catching those yarns. So here we have two more rows of white. So I will put a single crochet, making sure, you see I have that carry yarn, so I have to grab that. A single crochet and another single crochet here. And then I have my carry, which is right here. And I will make sure I catch that carry up yarn. Okay. Now here I have a double crochet and then another row that started with a double crochet. So here I would put, in this first double crochet, I would utilize a single crochet and then another single crochet, making sure I catch that carry. In this one, wherever there's a double crochet, I would put 2 single crochets in that double crochet. Here's another one. Here is another one. Okay. Where I have a single crochet, I would place 1 single crochet. Here's one, and here's another single row with a single crochet, so I will place a single crochet. Again, here's another row with a single crochet and another row with a single crochet. So I would place a single crochet in each row. And then here's the next single crochet. We have another row that ends with a single crochet and then another single crochet. So same here. Wherever I have a single crochet in that row, I would place a single. Wherever I have a double crochet, I would place 2 single crochets on that double. Sorry, let me pull this. Making sure that you catch any tie offs. I happen to have a tie off because this is where I ran out of yarn, so I caught that in there. And so this is a double. So I'm going to, where that double is, I'm going to put 2 single crochets. Where that next double is, I'm going to put 2 single crochets. And you're going to continue going down this top, and then we'll meet again when you get towards the end. Okay, so now I have reached the last stitch of the top. So let's get that last stitch in there. So we got 1 single crochet. Okay, so now our top is single crochet. So now we're going to keep this stitch on our hook, and we're going to chain 1, and then we're going to turn our work. Sorry. So now we got our work turned. So we have chained 1. We're going to go in that stitch right next to it, which, so you can see, is right here. And we're going to put a single crochet right there, just like that. And then we're going to simply single crochet until we have put 1 single crochet in each crochet across the top. And then when we get to the end, you're going to fasten off, and then we'll work on the bottom. So I'll meet you when we get towards the end of the top row. Okay, so now I have reached the last stitch of the top. So let's get that last stitch in there. So we got 1 single crochet. Okay, so now our top is single crochet. So now we're going to keep this stitch on our hook, and we're going to chain 1, and then we're going to turn our work. Sorry. So now we got our work turned. So we have chained 1. We're going to go in that stitch right next to it, which, so you can see, is right here. And we're going to put a single crochet right there, just like that. And then we're going to simply single crochet until we have put 1 single crochet in each crochet across the top. And then when we get to the end, you're going to fasten off, and then we'll work on the bottom. So I'll meet you when we get towards the end of the top row. Okay, I have reached the last stitch of this top row of single crochets, and at this point we're going to fasten off. So I'm gonna cut my yarn and fasten off, and then I'll come back and weave that in. Okay, so now for the bottom row, we are going to have our throw facing right side up. So I know this is my right side because I made this nice little right side signifier bow thing. So this is my right side. Okay, and we are going to join still our color A to the bottom. So let's do a slip knot. Let's find the end of this row. I'm working the wrong way, sorry. Let's find the end of this row. Let me get myself organized. Oop, I'm doing all kind of stuff, you guys. Okay, I'm back. I got a little discombobulated. So we're going to join our color A. So I'm going to go into this first stitch on the bottom, and I'm going to join this. And I still have my right side facing up. All right. And we're going to do same process of in the stitches that have doubles, we're going to put 2 single crochets, and in the stitches that have singles like this right here, we're going to put a single crochet. All right, there we go. Same process. If it has a single, we're going to put a single in each. When we get to the stitches with doubles like this and this, we're going to put 2 in that double and 2 in that double. Okay, and then we'll meet towards the end, and we're going to do the same process that we did on the top. All right, so you're going to do this until you get to the end, and then you're going to chain 1, and then you're going to do a second round of single crochets, and then you're going to fasten off. When you finish that, you're going to weave in your ends, and then admire your beautiful Cascade Delight throw. Okay, I'm back. I got a little discombobulated. So we're going to join our color A. So I'm going to go into this first stitch on the bottom, and I'm going to join this. And I still have my right side facing up. All right, and we're going to do the same process of in the stitches that have doubles, we're going to put 2 single crochets, and in the stitches that have singles like this right here, we're going to put a single crochet. All right, there we go. Same process. If it has a single, we're going to put a single in each. When we get to the stitches with doubles like this and this, we're going to put 2 in that double and 2 in that double. Okay, and then we'll meet towards the end, and we're going to do the same process that we did on the top. All right, so you're going to do this until you get to the end, and then you're going to chain 1, and then you're going to do a second round of single crochets, and then you're going to fasten off. When you finish that, you're going to weave in your ends, and then admire your beautiful Cascade Delight throw. So I have reached, this is the second row on the bottom, okay? So one tip I want to give you is that I don't like how, okay, so this, I've made my last single crochet, and if you look and see, there's a bunch of what I call dead space, which would be the corner. So what I would suggest you do to make that look nicer is simply, and the pattern doesn't say this, but what I would suggest is you can just put a slip stitch. You can slip stitch into that first single crochet, and then tie off there to bring that together, so it won't look like you got a big thing of dead space right there. Okay, so that's a little tip. So that the other thing you can do is you can put which I did on this corner, is you can put 2 single crochets right in that corner to give it that rounded edge, and then tie it off. That's the other thing that you can do, so that you don't get that dead looking space right there. So I have reached, this is the second row on the bottom, okay? So one tip I want to give you is that I don't like how, okay, so this, I've made my last single crochet, and if you look and see, there's a bunch of what I call dead space, which would be the corner. So what I would suggest you do to make that look nicer is simply, and the pattern doesn't say this, but what I would suggest is you can just put a slip stitch. You can slip stitch into that first single crochet, and then tie off there to bring that together, so it won't look like you got a big thing of dead space right there. Okay, so that's a little tip. So that the other thing you can do is you can put which I did on this corner, is you can put 2 single crochets right in that corner to give it that rounded edge, and then tie it off. That's the other thing that you can do, so that you don't get that dead looking space right there. And we have completed our Cascade Delight throw from Herrschners. Came out really pretty, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you, and happy crocheting.